So this drawing was created for Inktober. It's a drawing using a unipin marker of a Riggit Galloway cow, and then there's a calf obviously feeding just in front of her. It's A4 mixed media paper, and I'm just getting that very, very wet. And I'm going to put some background washes down with my watercolor here. And when I painted these Riggits before on this scale, I think that's a green. It's an old green I've got there. Yep. So when I've painted these Riggits before on this sort of scale, I've sometimes used a striped background. Let's just get paint on camera for you. So that's my plan again today, but I'm just going to use a variety of greens. Then we'll pick up some of that blue that's left on my palette. And then clean the brush a little bit. This is a big synthetic mop brush by Jackson's. I think I've got a bit of yellow there on the palette. That's still coming out quite green. I don't want it to look green, I want it to look yellow. Maybe, yeah, I think there's too much green in that brush. Let me just grab another one. Let's use this flat. Let's see if we can get some of this lemon yellow on the go. Yeah, that's starting to work. And then I'll get this paler green, sort of a leaf green, over here. So the stripes I've used in previous paintings have been rather, wider in terms of the colour spectrum. But I just thought I'd go with a mix of greens this time. Notice I've painted right the way through the animals. I'm about to mop up some of that with this paper towel. And let's do a little cerulean blue, just to change things a little bit. Obviously it's going to come out green as it mixes in, but we'll just make it a bit bluer on that end. There we go. All right, so now I need to just mop up this wash as best I can. So that the animal goes back to being as close to white as I can get it. I don't mind if there's a little bit of paint still on the animal. Okay, that's got most of it. I'm just going to give that background a little bit of a spritz with the water spray as well, to see if we get some kind of nice accidental effects from that. And the paint's starting to pool a bit there, so I'm just going to lift out some of that. But I'm going to leave that paper flat now and let it dry. And then when it is completely dry, I'll come back and do the animals. Now I left the background watercolor to completely dry, but because I'd used so much water, the stripes have more or less disappeared and it's kind of merged into one. But I quite like the soft focus effect, and I think it'll work well as a background. I'm going to come in now with my water brush and my Inktense watercolors. So we'll start by grabbing some burnt umber, perhaps a bit of the orange, and mix that in. Let's get a bit more orange in there. Bit of red. these, that's quite a nice brown. So these Riggit Galloways are very distinctive because they have a white stripe down their backs, down their chest, and then the rest of them kind of an orangey reddish brown. And there are other patches of white here and there as well, you know, but that's the general patterning. So I'm just keeping this wash fairly fluid, and it doesn't have to be a smooth wash because I'm depicting, you know, the shaggy hair and coat. So any texture that ends up being left in there is, generally speaking, all to the good. Let's go a bit closer to the red this time. So I'm trying to stay fairly loose and not think about this too much. Just looking at the big shapes and hinting at texture. And then I can overlay some of this colour on top of some of what I put down before, so we get some, you know, some variation. We'll keep going. I'm going to go a little bit more red, a little bit more orange for the calf, initially at least. And you can see I'm not really following the line work that I've put down, at least not exactly. Because I can come in again with my pen later if need be. Because really with this sort of patterning, I feel you've got two choices really. You can either try and copy it exactly, or you can try and just put down the essence of it. And I personally feel, from the way I work at least, is just grabbing a bit more burnt umber, put that in the mix to get a darker colour. If it's more free-flowing, then I kind of adapt to what the paint gives me naturally, and that has a more natural, lifelike or lively look. It's kind of a good dark, so we'll put get a bit of water out of the brush. Use this as a shadow colour for the inner ears. And then just looking to see where else we need some darks. Now, there are some darks on the rear end and the rear legs, but they're a little more bluish, actually. Before I get to those, I'm going to grab some yellow ochre. And we'll put some of... Oops, that's a bit too... That didn't clean my brush out enough. That's not that that bit matters too much, but I'll just lift off a touch of that. Okay, let's get a little of that yellow ochre. There we go. And we'll put a bit of that down. Do some of that up here, actually. Put a bit of pure red down there, and I'll go over that in a bit with one of the browns, but I think some of the brighter colours in there, including a bit of pure orange, wouldn't go amiss. Okay, so let's clean the brush off, and a little bit of the ocean blue mixed in with that first brown that I had, and we'll pop that on down as a light grey initially. The rear legs here, some of the tail. Put a bit under the chin. It's kind of a nice neutral shadow colour. And then we'll go a bit more towards the blue, and see what that looks like. Yeah, that's not too bad. And then I'm just cleaning out my brush. I'm just cleaning this water brush on a bit of paper towel. And then we'll go just a little bit of the pure blue. Nice and watery. Let's see. That's come out a little dark, but I think it actually works fairly well. So, again, fairly dark, but we'll just lift off a little bit. I actually don't mind the dark too much. Well, it certainly pops against the oranginess of the browns I've put down. And I think I'm going to let that dry now. But while that's drying, I can come in with a bit of the pure light green for the foreground. Get a bit of texture in here. And then while that's wet, we'll get a bit of mixing going on with a darker green. Get a bit of that brown in there as well. And then we can hint at some cast shadow. So the idea being that the animal and the animals and the foreground are now being brought forward, hopefully, compared to that very soft focus background.